Today is February 2nd. It's Groundhog Day, and guys, does it feel a lot like last offseason to you? Punksy Phil said 6 more weeks of winter, but pitchers and catchers report in just 10 days. Let's talk about it. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Yins guys, thanks for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Jake. You know Josh. A little bit is still feeling a little under the weather, so trying to pick up a little bit of the slack for him. How are we doing tonight, Josh?
I texted you this morning. I was like, we might not do this tonight. We just might not.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling, at least better.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, mute button will be my friend maybe tonight. We got through Thursday night pretty easily, I would say.
Yeah.
From what, where we thought it was pretty easy.
Yeah.
So we'll see where we land today. It does feel a lot like last off season, Jake.
It does. It feels similar. And we had a couple late, right before spring training signings too. So is that still going to happen as well?
It has to.
Does it?
Yeah. Yeah, it has to. They said there's going to be more.
That's fine. They can say it all they want, but at this point, I'm ready to roll with what we got, and we can make a deal in season.
Well, that's a fair point, but I think that there was still. We're going to get into all this, but I think that there's still maybe something more they can do, and we're going to talk about all these scenarios, the different things that they have done, what they could still do, and essentially, just see where we're at here, without thinking of it as in this is how I feel today, but actually take a step back and maybe talk about the things there. And obviously, we want to try to take the positives and the negatives and put them together.
Right. Yeah, and that's you gotta do stuff like that if they gotta cancel each other out, right? The positives and negatives to get a decent thought process on what we got going on.
If they did an all right job.
Yeah.
Which they probably didn't.
Well, they won their arbitration hearing with Santana, or against Santana, however you want to say it.
Sure.
He's going to earn $1.4 million, and he filed for 2.1. So, and he looks to be a guy that we might be leaning on a little bit this year. I mean,
yeah, but does that
surprise you? The way he looked at the end of the year? No.
I feel like 1.4 million is about right.
Yeah.
So
I just hate when they actually have to go to the hearing.
Yeah.
Just wish they could just settle outside and be done with it. I mean, all the thing you ever hear about arbitration hearings is horror stories, right?
You hear a lot about that, but the Pirates seem to be basically just set it, go to it, whatever they decide. They decide. It seems pretty easy in that sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're not, I don't know. Maybe they're not as bad. Maybe they are. That's one of those things where I think it's probably best we don't know.
Yeah.
And just let them deal with that kind of crap. But I think 1.4 million feels right.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a long history of being what we saw. And we've had this happen before.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't care what he makes. To me, it is what it is, but I think it feels fine. Bucko Mike says he dominated down the stretch. That's true. He did.
Yeah.
And you know what? And he may come out and be worth the 2.1 million or more. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
And he could come out and be a complete flop. You just don't know.
Right.
Especially with bullpen arms.
what is Fangraphs? I mean, so Fangraphs, it's not perfect, right? Fangraphs is not perfect in their value assessments and whatever else. But I'm curious to know what they have for what he did last season overall in a value. And they assume so much, right? I forget what it is. I forget their assumption, but it's pretty big. They're basing it off of WAR, and they're essentially saying, okay, he was 1.2 WAR last year over 2 teams, which according to them somehow is worth $9.4 million. Now that's free agent dollars, Jake, not arbitration dollars. That does make a difference. But it's by far in 2022, 5.4 million. So other than that, there's been some negatives in there and not even $1 million in any other season.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. That value, that tool's a little bit, it's a little bit interesting because like I said, it's a free agent number, not an arbitration number. So obviously, but like what he did last year, are you throwing, $9 million at a guy who does that? Maybe. You know what I'm saying? Like there were some good numbers there, but I don't know. Also, maybe not. If you split them up, if you just look at the Pirates numbers, then maybe, see, Bucko Mike puts it out there, 2.44 ERA, 2.44 FIP, under 1 whip with the Bucks. And so, that's fair, but with the Yankees, quite different.
Yeah.
Do they have it? Yeah. So basically, he would have been worth less than $1 million for the Yankees, 8.5 for the Pirates. So that seems to make a little more sense. What he did with the Pirates, I think if he was doing that every year and he went to free agency, you'd probably be paying somewhere around $8 to $10 million for a guy that was as good as he was with the Pirates.
Yeah.
Either way, that doesn't really help the conversation. That's a rabbit trail that because this is arbitration and this is, what I mean? To me, it's all about he just doesn't have a body of work.
Yeah.
To really rely on.
He hasn't done enough yet. Yeah.
So anyway, there it is. Any more of the Groundhog Day stuff? You care? 6 more weeks of winter. What do you care
until
about?
Until I read, the intro part, I didn't even know it was Groundhog Day. I do not pay attention. I never have. I don't really like the movie.
The movie. Okay, outside of a movie, though, it's been a thing for a minute.
Yeah. No, it's been a thing for a long time.
That's what I mean.
I just don't. I just don't buy into it, I guess.
Okay. So anyway. Yeah, see, Dave White says he was last year's version of a right-handed Baraki. So that's kind of where you're at now. Baraki's now on a minor league deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Projections, Bucko Mike says, projections from different pubs have Santana 3.79 to 4.40 ERA. That's fine too. And that's the same thing. It's the body of work that creates the projection.
Yeah.
And so that's it. You know what I mean? All right. Enough of Santana. He's in our bullpen. It's a good, if he can repeat that, that's great. That lowers the blow of Dowry Moretta missing out on a year. It lowers the urgency to get Moretta back on this roster and pitching in meaningless innings and so on and so forth. Now you've just got a little bit, and as good as it was, now you're saying, okay, well, let's maybe lighten the load up on Majinski and Holderman as they try to, lock it in. But you got Nicholas who kind of broke out in a way last season, and you start to say, well, there's a lot of upside in the bullpen.
Yeah.
So why don't we go there first? We're going to talk about some of the different things that the Pirates have done this offseason. And since we're already found our way here, why don't we go there? They needed to address left-handers in the bullpen, like bad.
Mm-hmm.
Joey Wentz, the only one in there. And now you're looking at really three. They brought Baraki back on a minor league deal, but they bring in Caleb Ferguson and Tim Meza, who probably were underwhelming when they signed. If you were like me, underwhelming when they signed. But then as you dig into it, these are two major league left-handed pitchers. They're not going to do like a Chapman, or like if we wanted to say, let's go after Tanner Scott so that we have a backup, somebody that can take the role of Bednar if he's not back, things like that. They're not going to do that. But for what they are, what do you think? What do you think? How did they address left-handers in the bullpen?
Creatively, that's how I feel. Like they didn't go out and get a name, right? They went out and got a couple pitchers that, it's like you said, were underwhelming when we first saw it, and then you look at underlying numbers, you look at just body of work or in general, and it's like, you know what, these guys might not be that bad. So this might be good. And then you look into it a little more. You start watching some video, right? Start seeing some of the results, and you're like, no, I think I'm in on this. These are good pitchers. Still not your blockbuster, like not anything like that. That's why I'm gonna stick with creatively.
Still muted. Okay. I'm trying to mute like every time I'm not talking because I have a cough drop in, and I don't want them clicky clackies all over in everybody's ear.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
No one likes the clicky clackies.
Nobody likes them. I don't even know if they're being picked up, but just in case, that's what it is. So, yeah, I really like it. Left-handers, I think that they've done a good job. These are good matchup guys. They're going to be very good. I really do think, as far as did they address left-handers in the bullpen? Yes, absolutely they did. Mm-hmm. And I think they've done a pretty good job. Like I said, nothing electric, but we're talking about lefties. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, they don't have to be quite electric.
Sure.
And when you just got done saying, like, well, you've got Bednar if he can bounce back, you've got Majinski, you've got Holderman, you've got Nicholas, you've got Santana. Like your bullpen is pretty deep right now.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, any of those guys could take a turn because they're all kind of young or don't have, you know what I mean? With Santana, we said body of work. I mean, Holderman's been what he's been, but we think we have reason for that. Majinski still, you know what I mean? A little bit of questions. Yeah. As much as he could be a back end guy, he also could just, be a seventh inning guy. I could see it go either way. And I could see any of those three filling in closer role if, you always talk about injuries for every season. And right. I think that any of the three, if they're hot, they can take that spot. Any of the four. Because, Nicholas is there too. You know what I mean? And everybody else has, done it in a short window. So, I think it's there. I think there's a lot there. There's also other pitchers that I believe you could throw into that role. Ashcraft could be a guy that, you could bring him up if you really need major league arms and say, well, you're going to be a reliever for this year. We'll stretch you back out next year. Let's do this. I like that for him too. Mm-hmm. So as far as lefties go, I think that's it. I think that we're pretty pleased with what they've done. Obviously, not their only need this offseason.
No.
Let's go to first base. That's something that they did address. They did it, they did it in Pirates fashion, I guess you could say. Hold on, my notes are like, I gotta make it a little bit thinner so I can see the whole end of the line if I zoom in. So I can glance at them a little bit because I've got some numbers here that I want to make sure I'm glancing at. But essentially, Rowdy was here last year. It was a 1-year deal, which means he's gone. And technically, with or without the fiasco at the end of the season, he didn't work out. He had a couple months, right? Yeah. Other than that, he was
a little run.
It was pretty bad. And so, I always wanted. It was funny when we got him. I was upset with it. When you have somebody and you get to see him, like Rowdy's an easy guy to root for, man.
Yeah,
you wanted to see him figure that out. He's a likable guy. I did not think he was going to be a likable guy.
Yeah, but he was fun, like just a fun dude. He was good for the clubhouse.
Yeah.
All the things you want to see, except for production on the field.
Right. So we'll think about him and we'll compare it.
Part.
Right. And we'll compare it because we're going to be talking about, where we're at right now and things like that. Okay. So they were in on Josh Naylor for a minute, right? They had talks with Christian Walker, or at least had a talk with Christian Walker. It was reported. And then who else? Was there somebody else that they were? No, probably. I don't know. I can't remember if there was anybody else they were linked to at first base or not.
I don't think so.
Okay. So they ended up with Spencer Horwitz. So you take a look at the comparison between this player and the other players, and I'm going to compare what I have here is Christian Walker, Josh Naylor, Rowdy Tellez in mind, right? What they had last year, what they could have had this year had they made one of those other teams. I mean, they made the deal with Cleveland. They could have got Josh Naylor. You know what I'm saying? They also were talking to Christian Walker, who signed a deal. And so you can compare to say that's what it would have taken.
Yeah.
So obviously, in contrast to Christian Walker, he's left-handed. That's good. You wanted him to be left-handed. So Christian Walker's not. So there you go. Also, like, as far as Horwitz goes, and here's the numbers I had wrote down. 18.4% K rate, which is really good. 19.4% whiff rate, which is really good. 25.7% chase rate, really good. 27.3% squared up rate. This is one of the new ones with bat speed. Bat speed's not great, right? But you're getting a squared up rate that's really good. His sweet spot launch angle deal, 37.4%. That's 81st percentile, right? And an 11% walk rate, which is 83rd. Like he's in the ballpark. There's a lot of red in these sections, right? Now, what because of the swing speed, you're gonna miss out on exit velo. You're gonna miss on hard hit rate, things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's a bat to ball kind of guy. Something that you didn't get with Rowdy. Something that you won't get with Christian Walker. Surprisingly, you do get that. You do get the limited strikeouts from Josh Naylor. He was in Cleveland last year. They don't strike out. And Josh Naylor is, I think 2% better than Horwitz in the strikeout department. He's also been in the league a little bit longer. There's something to be said about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a little bit there. But Naylor hit 31 home runs last year. Christian Walker has hit 30 home runs in multiple seasons, or at least close to. And Rowdy Tellez hit 30 home runs one year, but obviously was not able to make that happen. And Christian Walker, a lot more, all those players, Rowdy aside, Naylor and Walker, a lot more expensive than what they got for Horwitz and for a lot longer. Like, Naylor would have been a 1-year guy.
Right.
Walker would have been 3, but they would have been 3 expensive years. You probably won't pay that in any of the arbitration years that you have Horwitz if you have him the whole time, if it works out. Yeah. There are things that you could say, there are positive things about this signing. Now, that doesn't necessarily all mean we love it, but I think we've been okay with it.
Yeah.
So now here we are, taking a step back, taking a look at it. How do you feel about it? All in all, not just the creativity that I just said, not the positives that I just put out there. I want to know, without those things, add to it, how do you feel about Spencer Horwitz being the first baseman going into the year?
I feel like it's better than anything we had. I think it's a definite upgrade from last year's team. I don't feel great about it, but I don't feel bad about it. I like that they were. My problem is they probably had a conversation, right, with Christian Walker, and then it just seems like it was didn't go anywhere, maybe because of money. But, all in all, I think we've actually got a first baseman for a change that's going to be just like, I shouldn't say for a change because, Carlos Santana was a good first baseman.
That's true.
All across the board.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. They gave up too much for him. I don't disagree, Dave. The only thing I can say is I know you can never have too much pitching, but we did have a surplus in right-handed power arms. So, I was okay giving one of them up, even if it was just to get. I mean, and you don't know. Horowitz could just break out as well. I don't think he's going to hit you. I don't think he's going to hit you 20.
Yeah, it's hard.
Maybe
it's hard because the guy hit 12 in 90 games.
Yeah.
I don't think so either, but it wouldn't really surprise me. I think if he hits 20 home runs, then what we'll say is, I guess if you look back to last year, he hit 12 in 90. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a path for that to happen.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. 12 and 90. I mean, that's not too far off. Probably a 22 homer pace.
So Bucko Mike says 25 for Horowitz. He's been saying
I'm
that.
Here for it.
He's been saying that.
I hope you're right.
Yeah, obviously we're always going to hope.
guy.
We're always going to root, right? We're always going to hope.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I like about him is the bat to ball stuff.
Yeah.
The thing I like about him is the fact that we struck out way too much.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy is a guy who shouldn't go down that same path. Now, it could also matter that you get a new hitting coach that decides when there's 2 strikes and runners in scoring position, do everything you can not to strike out. You know what I mean? Instead of trust the process, swing for the fence. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now you're starting to build a team that really isn't swinging for the fence anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I see a lot of that, but that's a kind of an issue that maybe needs addressed. We got Reynolds is going to hit 26, 27 home runs. I think we know that pretty consistently.
Cruz hit 24,
Cruz.
so
O'Neal Cruz is going to hit you 25 to 30.
Okay.
Maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
There's that possibility of maybe more. Outside of that, Josh, you're looking at Nick Gonzalez might hit you 10 to 15.
Maybe.
In a good year.
Yeah.
Horowitz, we're saying 20 to 25 maybe.
But you can't count on that. 15.
No, you can't. We'll count on 15. Joey Bart, roll the dice.
12.
Roll the
catcher,
dice.
But you say from the catcher position, could you get another 15? Sure. I think that's probably safe to say you could get 15 from the catcher position.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't implode.
Right.
And then Hayes, you have no clue.
10 home runs from third base. 10 to 12 home runs from third base. IKF's not going to hit him out. 5 to 10, that's a problem. And then you're left with right field, which we'll talk about next. Actually, let's move into it. They still haven't addressed it. They went into the offseason. Now, first off, let's let the cat out of the bag, I guess, or let's talk about the one thing that we're not going to talk about is they should have addressed shortstop, but they never said they were going to.
Right.
They're convinced they've already got a shortstop. Right? We've never heard anything about it. So we scratched shortstop, no matter how much we thought they should have replaced the shortstop and other people thought they should have replaced the shortstop. We're going to move on from that because they never said that. They said they were going to address first base, left-handers in the bullpen, and a right fielder. And we didn't know if Reynolds was going to be involved in right or first or whatever, so we didn't know how that was going to go.
Yeah.
But essentially, they still have right field left. Or left field, whatever. They still have corner outfield left. But let's just, for the sake of simplicity, right field. Thought I had a sneeze coming. So they still have this left to do. And what it looks like is internally, Billy Cook, Jack Sawinski, Joshua Palacios, and maybe a dark horse of Nick York. Because if I don't say it, 5 people in the chat will say, don't forget Nick York. Right? So, that's your internal options, which is either unproven, would have to hit the absolute ceiling, or would have to bounce back from a really, really bad year. So when you're talking about right field in-house, you better hope you're lucky. But what is left, right? It was apparent that, okay, so we've heard that there was an offer, a 1-year offer for big money somewhere, right? We can guess that's Santander. A 1-year offer to Santander for upwards of $20 million, but only 1 year, right?
Yeah.
We heard nothing about Profar, nothing about O'Neill, or maybe there was a talk. It's been so long ago, I don't remember.
That happened quick. I don't know.
And there was Conforto. We never heard anything. That happened, soon in the offseason to the Dodgers. You know what I mean? Like that's a big thing. So what's left? Grichuk, Verdugo. Those are the 2 names we talk about. Austin Hayes has already been signed to Cincinnati, which that's the one that kind of bugs you because you're like, dang, if that works for Cincinnati, that's going to feel even worse because they're in division, right?
Right.
And we could have gone there. And hold on. And then there's Alex Verdugo. And there's obviously still the potential trade for somebody like Taylor Ward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. That's what we're looking at. Essentially 3 guys, in my opinion. You're looking at Grichuk, Verdugo, and Ward. Now, as long as you're talking about trades, it could be so many different people. We can't just limit it to that, but that's what we know, right? We've heard interest in all 3 of those people. You got 10 days, man, or 10-ish days, because they could do it a couple days into spring training if that's what they had to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm seeing Bucko Mike too saying Mark Canha is a dark horse name popping up of late too, which would be another, okay, this is our lefty, which means you're still relying on Jack Sawinski. So that's your path, right? Ward's an everyday player. He's not a platoon player, right? Canha, I don't know. Maybe he isn't either. But I was thinking that Canha is probably one of those platoon type players like Grichuk. And I'm just going to say again, and I could be wrong about that. First off, I haven't looked into Canha very much, but for Grichuk, he is a platoon player. If they bring him in and they have to rely on him for more, you're looking at Connor Joe all over again. You cannot overexpose these guys who are best at platoon. They are a better player because they don't get the negative marks of batting against right-handers. They're a better player putting them in strength spots. Sure, you can put them in against some righties, but it's got to be the right matchup.
Yeah. And you're still looking at a guy who in 393 at bats had 7 home runs. Like,
who's that?
Canha.
Okay, so you're looking up Canha now. Okay.
Not that I hate it. Not that I hate this suggestion at all. I just, at this point, I'm either bringing somebody in who's going to do a lot of damage, or I'm just going to run with what I got.
Yeah. But
I don't necessarily love the idea of...
It's been a long time since Canha's been a guy, though. You know what I'm saying? It's been a long time.
I'm kind of in the ballpark of not giving outfield looks to Nick York.
It all depends on what you're doing, Jake. If he ends up being the starter every day, I'm okay with it. He's played some outfield. If it gets him in the lineup and he's hitting, I'm all for it. Not as a platoon player, playing 30% of the time. By the way, Canna last year, 380 on base against lefties. 2 home runs in 129 plate appearances. But, 7 doubles, right? So it's not great, but he's a 275, 380 guy against lefties. Now against righties, that's 229, 330. So he is a platoon type player. At least that's his 2024 numbers. If I go back to 2023, they're pretty close. More home runs and way less at bats against lefties, but the average in the on base is close. It's a little bit better. Like 10 points higher against lefties, but an 825 OPS against lefties versus 721. So he's a platoon player. That's what we're looking at. Now, actually, I went back to 2022 and it's the complete opposite split where he was better against righties than he was against lefties. So I don't know,
he was
man.
Playing every day at that point and facing a lot more righties.
Yeah, and he was in 23 too. It looks like he was playing mostly every day.
Okay.
But last year, I don't know, maybe still. But 2 different teams. Yeah, he played 125 games last year, 139. I don't even know. He played for 2 different teams. Yeah, 140 and 20. So yeah, he's playing every day. But probably best there you go. Mike's got out there 275 versus lefties, 265 with runners in scoring position last year. So he's a platoon type player. So either way, if you bring him in, you're still talking about, okay, well then Jack has to work out.
Yeah.
And then you can say, if I can get 6 or 7 home runs out of Canna, and then get your 18 out of Jack, 20 out of Jack, then you can say, all right, we've got 25 plus home runs in right field. We've done our job. But you got to get it. You got to get that from Jack.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Based on, what we were just talking about with the power numbers on Josh, that's 116 home runs.
What is? What we just said?
What we were just talking about as far as what we
positionally
on
all across.
Yeah.
Which is not a whole lot.
That excludes right field. Like I didn't put anything in for right field.
Okay.
That's 116 home runs. How many home runs did we hit last year as a team?
I'll get that for you. I can get that for you. Just give me a second to do it.
Because, we're talking about a team that's lacking power. And then, I don't know. I feel like right field, you're going to need 45 home runs to be better or close to what we were last year. And that's off the top of my head number. I'm not.
Yeah, what is the top of your head number? What do you have a guess?
Oh, I was guessing at like 160 something.
160 exactly. 25th in the league.
So at 116, you're looking at what, 44 home runs to get back to that. 34.
You're not going to get it,
34.
Jake. But if you get a guy like Horwitz out there, and let's say it's Verdugo in right field, all of a sudden you've changed the landscape of this lineup a little bit where you've got some more bat-to-ball guys. Verdugo's another guy who's a bat-to-ball guy. He has been through his career. He's not going to chase. He's going to take his walks. You know what I'm saying? Like you go for a guy like Verdugo and you are kind of changing, like, okay, sure, we don't hit a lot, but at least we're not also striking out a lot. Whiff rate, 93rd percentile last year. And this is a bad year for him, Jake. K rate, 88th percentile. Chase rate, 70th. Squared up, 96th. And once again, low bat speed, but he's squaring it up and he's doing well. You also have fielding, range, 76th percentile, arm value, 96th, arm strength, 94th. Like this guy is a potential, like, granted, that was a bad year, right? If you go to the year before that, of course, we don't want to square it up because we didn't have bat speed stuff, but your chase rate, 85th, your whiff rate, 94th, your K rate, 88th. You still have that 95th percentile in arm. His outs above average are still above average with 68th percentile. You move back another year, it's the same stuff, dude. 92nd percentile in K rate, 93rd percentile in whiff rate, not 73rd percentile in chase percentage. You got your sweet spot is still good, 90th percentile. Expected batting average, 92nd. Like there's all of a sudden you start seeing that. His arm's always good. He's up, you know what I'm saying? So like you get a lefty in here who hits somewhere in the low teens in home runs. He's probably going to continue to do that, but also just be a good hitter and not strike out a ton.
Yeah.
And when you start seeing, what's that?
This is a fair call out here. No, I did not include Kutch.
Right.
So
15
in those numbers.
In my opinion.
I gave 17. I gave 17 because he did hit 20 last year.
He did hit 20. You expect it to be down a little bit. I'd say 15 still, just to be safe.
So that'd be 131.
So now you need 20 home runs in right field to be where you were.
As far as bench home runs, not, we kind of did that, right? Because we were saying
only catcher
in a few positions
in third base. So, you know what I mean? If you're saying that Billy Cook's in there, he adds some power potential. Billy Cook can add 5 or 10 to that if he really, does well as a fourth outfielder and maybe a start here or there at first base and things like that. And then, Nick Gonzalez ain't going to play every day. So whoever else is going to play second base, maybe get 5 from Adam Frazier this season. So like there's some nickel and diamond in there that if you can get 15 out of right field as well, maybe you are right back where you were last year, but maybe this year with a couple more bat to ball type guys, maybe you do end up with a similar offense that you had last year, which by the way, was good enough to be under 500 in last place in the division. Like we're not like, it sounds like I'm being really positive about that, but at the same time, it's like, you're going to just go back to where you were power wise. You're going to be a little bit better of an offense if you are improved in the bat to ball area, which, you know what I mean? The strength of Matt Haig as a hitting coach says that, but Bucko Mike says Pirates never a home run squad. This is entirely true. Part of this is because of where we play at. Dave White says 5 from Frazier's optimistic. I don't know if it is. I think 5 from Frazier. He's going to be put into positions where it's that, right? He hit 4 home runs last year and 200, almost 300 plate appearances. He hit 13 the year before that when he played, right? More often. Now, 2022, he only hit 3. So there is something there. But I feel like he was always like
some old man strength.
Well, yeah.
Maybe.
There were some lower numbers, right? But he had back-to-back seasons in Pittsburgh with 10 homers. And those were seasons where he was playing a lot. So 7 home runs in 2020 in 58 games. And then with 2 teams, he only had 155 games. That was 2021 was rough, right? So 5 might be generous. I'll concede that 5 might be generous. No, Cheryl asks, do you think Frazier's an everyday player? Not in any chance unless everybody's hurt. I think that Frazier is a backup so much so that if Nick Gonzalez would go down at second base, then you would see either Triolo, Nick York, or Liover Peguero just leapfrog him into the starter's role, and Frazier continues to be exactly the role that he was signed here to be.
Yeah.
Now, if none of those guys are playing in AAA, you might not have a choice. But that's gonna write the story of this season for the Pirates. If Frazier has to start for a long time. Now, obviously, they are human beings, and this is baseball. If he goes out tearing, and that's a different story. We just don't expect that.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the expectation for anyone involved. He's here to be a backup. So. All right. All in all, though, right field. You said at the beginning of this show that you're about ready to just go with what we got. Talk about that for a minute.
I've been on here and I've said this before, and I'm going back on it. Okay. I think I am ready to just give Billy Cook a shot, man. Like between Billy Cook and then you either got Palacios or Sawinski. I'm rooting for Sawinski, but whoever wins in spring training, is going to get the nod out of the gate. But we're big. I say this all the time, big Sawinski fans. I hope he breaks out. But I mean, his potential. The reason I'm hoping for him is because his power potential is real.
Right. It's 30 plus.
It's real. And you throw a guy like Billy Cook, who's going to be a really good defender and some pop. It's not going to be, I don't know that he has 30 home run potential, but I think you could say if everything goes right and Sawinski and Billy Cook work out to be a great platoon combination, I think you could get 30 plus home runs out of right field.
Yeah.
Say 25 from Jack. I mean, because he's not going to be hitting every day, but he's going to get the bulk of it. 25 for Jack. I mean, like I said, if everything goes right, and then you got Cook coming up there, and he could hit 10 to 15 because he's going to get to play other places too. He'll play left field for Reynolds. He'll be bouncing around the outfield, I think, but I think mostly he'll be or right field. I mean, if you go with those two, they can play left field, and you can slide Reynolds to the right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm ready to get a good look at
Reynolds is a guy though. Because I would say Reynolds would probably stay in left if it's Sawinski. Sawinski's numbers defensively in right field are good.
Yeah.
They're just average. And the other two, maybe below average in center field, but in right field, like he's a positive defender. I don't know why you wouldn't just go ahead and be positive instead of, risking two average or negative guys. I think you would just do that. But and I think you're not going to move Reynolds around. I think Reynolds is a guy who's like, tell me what I'm playing. I'll play it. Okay. You're batting second. You're playing left field. Occasionally I'll let you DH. You know what I'm saying? Like that's Reynolds. You're going to simplify that. Not that he can't do it, but I think I think you get a better Reynolds if you simplify that for him.
Well, yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm saying if you go with Sawinski and Cook, I feel like that could be your left fielders and Reynolds just is your everyday right fielder.
And then as soon as somebody goes down in that group, you're switching it back because you're going to run Palacios or Nick York or, you know what I'm saying? If you're going to have a revolving door, you'd rather have it in right field. Don't you think?
I feel like all those guys, like Palacios is a center fielder by trade.
Yeah, but we've seen that.
Yeah.
He could say that, but I mean, we've seen that. We know that that's not what we want to do here.
No, not put him in center field, but I'm saying he can hold down left.
Sure.
I mean, he played well while he was in center field.
There's nothing there. There's nothing there for me that you know what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong. I could look at the data, but once again, defensive metrics are whatever.
Yeah.
They're imperfect. So I could look them up, but it's not really going to answer. I mean, you have to watch him play. I'd rather have Jack out there in center field, to be honest with you.
I think you're just kind of missing the point that I think they're both capable. I'm not saying that they're both the option.
Yeah.
I'm saying they're capable.
And it doesn't matter, right? Corner outfield. It doesn't matter where they're playing.
Yeah.
So,
but I'm just saying the PNC Park left field is big.
Right. Cheryl asked, Palacio was hurt most of last year, correct? Yeah, I think
illness and injuries.
Yeah,
because he was sick a lot too.
Yeah, but also I think Palacios. I mean, I think he could be a good fourth outfielder. I just don't like with his ceiling. I don't think that that's a guy you want as a starter. That's my point.
Yeah.
Bucko Mike says, I'd rather have Jake in center field than Palacios.
No, you wouldn't.
I can't laugh, dude.
Sorry.
That's funny.
No, I'm not worried about center field. It's Cruz.
No, yeah.
I don't care who plays there on his days off. Like, I'm honestly not too worried about it. It's going to be a game here and there.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to that because I think that Verdugo actually does add stuff to this team. That's what I think. And I think if you do go, and I should look that up, right? I should make sure that I look up Verdugo. And I'm gonna look at last year, but you got to remember, like last year was a down year for Verdugo. That's probably not the guy you're getting, but I'm gonna look at it anyway. When you look at it, he was better against righties. The power was 11 home runs against righties, only 2 against lefties. But the average, like the on base is 311 against lefties and 282 against righties. So let's look at a different year because we want to get a good idea of what this guy was done. My goodness. Okay, so that's better. Still 311 against lefties, but only 1 home run. He had 12 home runs against righties with a 329 on base. So you're getting a little better there. And then pretty even on base, but in 22, 329, 327, but a 285 average against righties, 1 home run against lefties, and a 266 average. His other 10 home runs were against righties, right? So you can keep going back, and you're going to keep getting the same thing. 2-11 home run split, right? 228 against lefties, 321 against righties. That's average. 269 on base, 392 on base. You know what I'm saying? Like those are the numbers that you're like, okay. 2022 version, you know what I'm saying? Give me 13 homers. But if you just take him out of the equation against lefties, this is a very good player. And you're talking about a guy who played left field. Let me make sure of that. Can I see defensive numbers for this? Maybe not, because I'm under splits right now. If I go to fielding and look at what year was I just talking? 2021? Kind of a mix, but mostly left field. Okay. And I mean, that's still 2024. Hold on. Yeah, but even then, let's just stick with 2024. Left field, right? We know he wasn't playing right because what's his face? Soto was in right? For the Yankees. I mean, the defensive numbers are incredible in left field. So now you get Verdugo. Now you have a real option of Billy Cook and Verdugo platooning in left field plus defenders, both with good range and good arms. And then you have Reynolds in right field protecting him. This is why I think that like Alex Verdugo, as much as we're thinking like this isn't it, I don't know. I mean, I feel like maybe this is it. Maybe this guy actually does fit this team pretty well. He's going to hit the ball. Like it's, bat the ball stuff is good.
Yeah. Changes
this lineup a little bit that when you don't have a lot of power, you can't have a lot of strikeout.
Right.
And this guy fits that bill. And like I said, I don't know, man. That's just how I feel. That's just how I feel about it. I feel like Verdugo's a good fit, and that's a better option because I think he's done it for multiple years. Aside from last year, he's been a good player everywhere except for New York. Right? We've talked about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like you got to give. When is Suwinski going to get another shot? That's the thing. Is it going to be with another team? Because I feel like if you go out and sign somebody, it may be with another team.
It doesn't have to be, just because of the fact that like, even if I would assume Verdugo's coming in on a little bit shorter of a deal because he feels like he had a really poor season and he could do better.
Yeah.
So even if he comes in with a 3 or 4 year deal, you also have that piece where you're saying, okay, well, how many years though? How many years is McCutchen going to keep signing?
Yeah. And
would Reynolds just move to that DH role for a while? Would you use that DH role for him and Suwinski? For, you know what I mean? For someone, you let those problems work themselves out. For Jack, As much as I'd love to see all of it happen, and I'm telling you the power's there, but he's also a swing and miss guy, and I'll take that, but you have to be careful how many of those you have in your lineup. And right now, if Triolo's in the lineup, you're going to have it, right? If Cruz is in your lineup, you're going to have it. You know what I'm saying? Now, it depends on what you get from some of those other positions. But the thing is like, once you start going with, oh, now we have, we're relying on Jack. If it doesn't work, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I guess
for me, when you say, when does Jack get his chance? To me, it's when Jack goes to Indianapolis and shows that he can rake.
Yeah.
But I got to see it there first. I will not. If you sign Verdugo, you take the pressure off Jack, you send him to Indy and you say, prove it. And then you're up. We'll if he hits, you'll find a place for the guy.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out. And if that means, because you got to think about it. Let's say Verdugo comes to the team, Jack's in the minor leagues. You got Jack, you got Reynolds, you got the whole thing going. But all of a sudden, Spencer Horwitz isn't hitting. Then you got your whole Reynolds to first base thing all over again. You put Sawinski in the outfield, and you're better for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see this happening, but you know what I'm saying? They Horwitz played some second base. I don't see that happening, but you know what I'm saying? You want to hit, then put in your best hitting lineup. What if Nick Gonzalez is sliding to shortstop and you need a second baseman and you say, well, Horwitz, give it a shot. You know what I mean? Because those are the guys that are hit. I don't know. These are all just whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess if Verdugo's not lighting the world on fire, but still having a decent season, and Jack is just tearing up AAA, you could always deal Verdugo.
Right. If it's later in the season, Verdugo's on a short term, you would. You could do that to say, this is where we want to go. We feel like Jack is back. Then you could do something like that. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, that's obviously, you deal with that problem if you have that problem.
Exactly.
But I just don't hate it when you look at the player or let's say Verdugo's not doing it. Let's say he's not doing well. You make the same move.
Yeah.
You just dump him and bring Jack up. And that's also going to matter if the team's doing well.
Right.
So Sherrod asks, is there a possibility of Reynolds playing first base against lefties and Cook in the outfield? I think from what I've been hearing lately, I think your best situation in that, honestly, is probably just Cook at first base. I think they're going to give Horwitz a chance to just play every day. He's here for a while. I think you owe that to the acquisition and what you gave up to at least give him a chance. But at the same time, I think Billy Cook's played first base. He can do that just fine. I know how much of an upgrade he is in the outfield, but now it sounds like Brian Reynolds essentially is, I was just doing that for some fun. I actually have it today, right? That's a jam.
Come out of nowhere. Oh my God. Got me. I thought you played a sound clip there for a second.
When you're sick, you can do something. I woke up like real deep yesterday, and Katie was like, "Oh, what are you doing? Voiceover on the side?" I was like, I should go do like a new a new intro, pre-recorded intro of a real deep voice. You'd never know it was me. The voice was so bad.
That's funny.
All right. All in all, Jake, let's wrap it up here.
Sure.
All in all, we just talked about the moves they've made and the one they didn't. These are the ones they said they would address. What does it take? I was talking to my friend Josh today. You know how those conversations go.
Mm-hmm.
We won't go into any detail there. But what does it take for this season? Okay, let me set this up a little bit. 5-year rebuild, we're done. The rebuild's over. And I know everybody likes to say, I can't believe this. Year 6, you should be better than this. This is year 1, in my opinion. Right? This is year 1.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with a 3-year rebuild or a 5-year rebuild is if you're just a little bit behind, the 5-year rebuild, that's bad. Because now it's a 6-year rebuild. And this season could very well be, that was an extension of the rebuild. You didn't get it done. A 5-year rebuild should really stop at 5. You don't have a cushion like you do a 3-year where it's like, we got to add a 4th year in here because, 2020 and then O'Neal's injury, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? You don't have that grace at this point.
No.
And so what does it take for this year to be a successful rebuild for what they do this season, for this rebuild to be successful? And what does it take for it to be a failure, in your opinion? And I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, but just, what do you think? I think the success one's pretty easy, but the failure one might be a little more detailed.
I mean, if you don't get to 500, it's a failure. You don't have a over 500, like I don't even want a 500. I don't want to be 81-81. If you don't win 82 games, it's a failure.
Do you think that's just on the outside? Like you're setting a hard and fast. Do you think that's maybe a little crass to say, okay, but if you have Reynolds and Cruz go down, or if Skeens and Reynolds gets hurt?
No, because
is it then still a failure, or did you run into some bad luck at the same time?
That would be some bad luck. I mean,
so there's no real if everybody's healthy and they don't win 82 games, then
even if everybody's mostly healthy, I'm not even saying you'd have to lose significant time from some people.
But those 3 guys in particular,
yeah, you'd have to lose significant time from those 3.
Right. If any of those 3 miss 75% of the season, they're cooked.
Yeah.
Any one of those 3 guys, I think they're going to have a hard time being okay.
Yeah. That's hard luck. And listen, if they go down, this is when you have to make a deal. You got to make a trade. You got to do something to rectify the situation and get to that 82. You
I don't know, man. I'll make a case for this. You tell me if it's a good case. The reason I don't do that is because this is year 1 of coming out of this thing. If you run into some bad luck and you pressure yourself into a Chris Archer trade and screw everything up down the road, right? Same sort of thing. Like, let's say, here's a perfect example of what a Chris Archer trade would be right now. If we wake up tomorrow morning and we find out that the Pirates traded Termarr Johnson and Thomas Harrington to get Luis Robert Jr. And then later they throw in a Hunter Barco. That is the Chris Archer trade all over again. You got a guy who might not play 100 games in any of the years he's here. And you gave up 3 legitimate major league prospects. And then obviously Barco's your Shane Baz, who you don't actually know if he's actually going to be a career. You know what I'm saying? Like anything can happen, essentially. Yeah. Looked like the most sure thing of that trade. And he's been the least sure thing.
So that's not really what I'm looking at when I'm thinking of making a deal. It's not doing that. It's getting a rental.
Okay. But
it's going out, and I'm looking at some of the outfielders, because I mean, if say O'Neal Cruz goes down, I'm knocking on the Baltimore's door. What can I do to get Cedric Mullins? Not that that's going to replace Cruz, but that's going to be a good ball player, a good center fielder, and he's going to be a free agent the next year. It's not going to take a lot to get him.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the kind of deal I'm thinking, like, to rectify the situation. I think he could replace Cruz enough.
Who do you have to give up to get it, though? That's the question, right?
Exactly. Like, if you're getting a guy with just it's a half a year,
you can't get anybody close.
Have to give up
they can't be anybody
give anybody up.
Yeah.
Right. And they're going to be, and they got a surplus of outfielders. Might be willing to make a deal like that.
Yeah, I just
for
think if they
a
do that
low-level minor
though,
leaguer.
I don't think so. I think if we know where Baltimore's at, if they do it, they're gonna want to help their rotation. You know what I mean? They're doing a playoff push. They're not going to give up a player without a guy that they think can make an impact.
But they also got outfielders knocking on the door. If they got an outfielder in AAA just ready to move, then they're kind of ready to move on from Mullins.
Sure, but they need to improve their pitching in order to take that trade because they'll get it from someone else.
Maybe.
So I mean, to be fair though, I'm getting like technical because you brought up the Orioles. Maybe if we were using a different team, maybe it's a different story, right? The Orioles aren't going to make a deal that doesn't help them get to the playoffs in 2025, but another team might. A team that's out of it might, right? You can go get a player like that, like a Mullins from there.
Does a deal like that help you get to the playoffs if you're bringing a guy who's an absolute stud that might be better than Mullins?
Yeah, but if one of those guys get hurt, you've just lost your depth. No, you don't do that. You know what I mean? And you don't know if he's going to be an absolute stud. I mean, if Mullins is playing terribly, yes. But if he's not, then no. Then you know what I'm saying? Like it's a whole different scenario. They don't have pitching like that. But Mike, yeah, we a little bit we did. And I basically compared a Luis Robert Jr. trade to the Chris Archer trade.
Yeah.
I think it's overblown, and you got a guy who might not play 100 games. And it's going to be trying to put all your chips on the table, and what they're asking for, you're talking about trading. I said this already, Termar and Harrington, and maybe throwing in Hunter Barco. Like when you're starting to talk about throwing that kind of stuff at a Luis Robert Jr. who literally can't play 130 games. He can't stay healthy. He's great when he's on the field, but like it's just not enough. Then you end up doing more. You do more damage to your rebuild, and you just set yourself back 2 years if he stinks or if he's hurt, which is the same thing as stinking, really. I'm harsh on that, right? But the best ability is availability. If you're not available, you're no good to me. That's the whole problem with Key Brian Hayes right now. He has to be, if he's available, if he's playing, he's well worth the contract that he's making.
Oh yeah.
Well worth. He's only making $7 million. Like that's defense alone. He could go up there and hit with a cane and he'd be worth his money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but best ability is availability. You got to be on the field.
I agree.
But I just don't. I'm out. I'm all the way out with what they're asking. If you can get Luis Robert Jr. for two low like Hunter Barco and some guy they just drafted, outside of Connor Griffin, then sure, make that deal. But you're nobody that's close. You can't set your rebuild back anymore. When they went and got Chris Archer, they got rid of two guys that would have actually made an impact on their team. Well, we don't know about Glasnow. Glasnow may have never worked out in Pittsburgh. He needed a change of scenery like guys need. But he's also not. He's always been hurt too, so.
Yeah.
But what Austin Meadows did for the first few years of his career would have helped Pittsburgh out a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway.
Turns out Shane Baz is always hurt too.
Yeah. And that's the further away one. Those are the ones he may have been healthy, but not good too. You know what I mean? Like it could have gone anyway. With younger guys, you just don't know the path they're going to take. And, you go after stuff like that. So a success to me is they make the playoffs this year. The rebuild was a success. That's quick and easy.
Yeah.
To me, they make the playoffs. It was a success. They did what they were supposed to do. If they don't make the playoffs, then it depends on what's that?
Jack Flaherty to the Tigers, $35 million.
1 year? Oh, 2 years, 35.
2 years, 35 with an opt-out.
All right, I think that's a good deal. Tigers, I think, are doing the right things.
Yeah,
they've got money to spend too. They've spent a lot of money in their history. All right. Anyway, as far as failure to me, it really depends on how it goes. I just don't think year one out of the rebuild, you can really call it a failure. If you saw signs, you know what I mean? Let's say they go 80 and 82, but all of a sudden the last 2 months of the season, Henry Davis hits 8 home runs and starts clicking. And O'Neal Cruz turns out to be a really good center fielder, but you just had major problems at short, and maybe your bullpen, maybe Bednar's not back, or right field was never figured out, right? Then all of a sudden you can start saying like, all right, but there's stuff here.
We've been saying there's stuff here for 2 years.
What's been here? Brian Reynolds has been here. Who else?
I'm just saying you've seen things, especially last year. You saw some stuff last year.
Well,
you saw some good runs.
You better.
You saw the really good start the year before.
Yeah, but we all knew that wasn't going to last. But those signs are the ones that you keep seeing. You know what I'm saying? You should be seeing signs every year of a rebuild. But what I'm saying is, if they come out and they go 80 and 82, but you find out some new things, like O'Neal Cruz hit 35 home runs, right? Or whatever else, you know what I mean? But you just couldn't put the whole team together. Like I'm saying, you could go out and you could have added a right fielder that could have been a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And it may have been premature because this rebuild may not have actually been good. Because we actually don't know. We're missing 1 year of O'Neal Cruz's career.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Brian Reynolds is the only guy that you can really say is here and is exactly what you want him to be. You don't know if Joey Bart is going to repeat. Some of these things you still have to find out. Now, that's the problem with this year, right? They didn't take a step forward in 2024, which is why I'm saying like they still actually might be in year 5 in a way, which is unacceptable, right? And when you do a 5-year rebuild, you don't get that grace period. However, is the rebuild a failure if still most of these parts are here in 2026 and they're a good team? Then the rebuild actually worked. It was just a year late.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. 2025 can be a failure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I thought that's what your question was.
I'm talking about the whole rebuild. What makes the rebuild a success or a fail? And do you make that in year 1 out of the rebuild? Do you define that right away? Here's my example of you can get better and still maybe miss the playoffs, right? The Diamondbacks went to the World Series with 84 wins. Yeah. Then they won 89. They were a better team and they missed the playoffs. So you can't say like, well, we have to make the playoffs. That's it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that.
I don't know. I guess I'm just saying there is room, depending on what you see on the field, to say, well, it's not totally done. You know what I mean? And this is so here's the crack, Jake. If they think the same way that I just explained, this might not be the last year for Sherrington after all. Even if they're 80 and 82. You fire a manager, you go to the next phase, but there was enough there to keep him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And maybe that's the unfortunate part. See how I did that? Made it look like I was, For me, the verdict's still out on Sherrington, by the way. I've said that since day 1 of this podcast. We'll find out in 2025 whether or not he's good or not. And I've had a lot of people tell me that's wrong. That's fine. It was a 5-year rebuild from day 1. And you kind of had that sense.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of rebuilds, they like bring in a manager and then they're like, all right, now it's time to win. Let's bring somebody in.
Yep.
Is it fair? Not necessarily.
No. But you're right.
Is it what teams do?
Yeah. Yep. Bucko Mike says Pirates to be 84 and 78 and Ben Sherrington and Shelton keep his gig. Yeah, I mean, that's true. If they go 84 and 78, I would say that was enough to say that got somebody in the playoffs just 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that extra playoff spot. 84 and 78 says, all right, now grow. What deficiency did you have? Why didn't you win 88? I need a 4-win player to replace somebody that was bad. Whatever position that is. Now it's time to say, now we can target exactly what we need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If right field's still a problem, then go do it. Stop messing around. Because now you know. Now you know that you're close. Imagine asking Bob Nutting, hey man, I just need 15 million more, man. I need to go get this guy. And he says, what have you shown me? And I'm going to say this, right? But I don't know that this is true. I don't know where they are in their money. I don't know where they are in their finances, but I know, I just listened to Neil Huntington talk about this on Foul Territory. And he was like, some teams will spend in the deficit for a few years because they know they're close. I don't know if the Pirates are even close to spending in a deficit. My gut says, no, they're not close. Right. But we know they have less than other teams.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We know that's a fact. And if you don't know that's a fact and you think it's not, bruh, that's just not reality. You just need to be real with it. They've got less money. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just you know what I mean? We don't know where they're at. Anyway, the point is that let's say they push it a little bit extra. You're a businessman. I'm not going to say you're Bob Nutting. You don't want to be Bob Nutting. Nobody wants to pretend to be Bob Nutting. The point is you're the owner of a team and you know that you're trying to make money because that's what businesses do. They make money. They don't lose money. Businesses don't lose money. I don't care who you are. I don't care what business you're running. If you're losing money, you're not good at what you do. But if you're making money, you're good. That's the owner. You hire people that can do the baseball stuff good. The owner don't care. The owner cares about making money anyway. You want to approach a guy and say, spend to the limit or over the limit. You better have something in place for me to say, what makes me think that this is going to work? You won 76 games, man. No, you're
2
not.
years in a row.
You're not offering Santander 100 million when you just won 76 games. You're not that close. Santander alone does not put you in the playoffs. You got to show him something and say, hey, we're close. I don't know. And maybe the only thing Sherrington's doing right now is leaving just this much room available to make a move at the end of the season if they get there.
Yeah.
Because I just don't see him getting to the number that we thought they were getting to.
No, there's no way.
Well, there is a way, but I don't see it happening. You get Verdugo in here for $10 million. Okay. Now you're what? $10 million away. All you do is one of the two extensions they're going to try to sign this spring. And you're done. You got it. You get O'Neal Cruz or you get Paul Skeens on some sort of extension. Not saying what the chances are good or not.
Yeah.
But if you get one of those two guys extended, you're right where they said you would probably land.
Yeah, I guess.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mike says, if I really want to do a trade for a player, a guy that would interest me would be Jesus Sanchez from the Marlins. Here's my take on that. I don't want nobody from the Marlins. Not after what we just saw. I'm done with the Marlins. Listen, yeah. I don't like nothing they got. I don't want nothing. But that's just me. Could be a good take. I know. I mean, he's I thought that's the guy we were actually going after last year. And then they came with Brian De La Cruz. I was like, that ain't it. Keith says, I wonder if Sherrington will trade for a right fielder no one is talking about. Well, they're talking about Taylor Ward, but he absolutely could trade for anybody at this point.
It's just that our side of that deal has to be right.
Yeah. Yep, that's fair. Bugga Mike says, chances are better with a Cruz extension. I get that. Yeah. I see a path that they could throw at Skeens and take it, though.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that another time. We need to get out of here before I cough up a lung. Thanks, guys, as always, for being in the chat, for listening when you listen. We always appreciate you guys. Make sure that if you're not subscribed on whatever platform you listen, do that. Hit the like button if there's a like button on your platform. Let's go, Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks!